Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news and rumor video here to discuss. In today's video, looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some injury updates, a couple small pieces of news, and we've got some trade rumors involving the New Jersey Devils, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Vancouver Canucks. We'll touch on all of these coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this for all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, we've got another newsroom review here to discuss. Today we can finally talk about some signings. There were a couple of signings from our past couple of days I want to touch on here today. One was with a long-time NHL player, and one was with a guy who was still UFA. So first, Tristan Nielsen, who was a longtime AHL player in the Vancouver Canucks organization, playing with the Abbotsford Canucks after the Canucks, I think, either drafted him or he signed there as an undrafted prospect, has officially signed a 2-year deal, league minimum, with the Colorado Avalanche. So not too surprised there. He had a really good start to this season at the AHL level, 3 goals, 7 points in 7 games with the Colorado Eagles, which is Colorado's AHL affiliates. So he had a very fantastic start there. We know the Avalanche lack a little bit of depth up front. Now Nielsen's, like I said, never played in the NHL before, so I'm not sure if he'll get a call-up option and get into a game or two for the Avalanche, especially if they were into some injuries. But that's another interesting added piece of depth that the Avalanche do have. He had a couple of really good seasons over at Abbotsford for the Vancouver Canucks, so very interesting note there. But the Avalanche have added some added forward depth by signing Tristan Nielsen to a new deal. And then we saw the Washington Capitals bring back Brett Leason. Leason, who was with the Anaheim Ducks over the past couple of years, originally I think started his career in the Caps organization, signed a 1-year deal, AAV of league minimum. So once again, it's not a big deal. Leason started his NHL career with the Capitals, putting up 3 goals and 6 points in 36 games in the 21-22 season. The past 3 years, he has spent in the Anaheim Ducks organization, including 2 years ago when he had put up a career high 11 goals and 22 points in 68 games. He was one of the more surprising guys. I was surprised he didn't get signed in for agency. So he's going to the Capitals. So starting the AHL, and then if he does really well at the AHL level, or they run into some injuries, he could probably easily get called up. So very interesting note there. But Brett Leason with the Washington Capitals has signed a 1-year league minimum deal, and Tristan Nielsen has signed a 2-year league minimum deal in the Colorado Avalanche organization. So very interesting note there. But those are all the only signings from our past couple of days. Next, going over to a couple of injury updates. So we got a long list of injury updates here again, just like we did in our last video. So first, with the Boston Bruins, Jordan Harris is contemplating surgery to deal with his lower body injury, so it must be pretty severe if he's contemplating surgery, so hopefully he will recover, but it sounds like it might be a little bit more of a longer-term injury for Jordan Harris. Tyson Kozak was placed in injury reserve with a lower body injury for the Sabres, while Michael Kessler could be activated off of injury reserve on Tuesday and make a season and Buffalo Sabres debut, so really good news there that they could be getting Kessler back. However, it is a bad blow to see Kozak be placed in injury reserve. Patrick Kane will miss his 4th straight game on Tuesday with an injury, so that's a bad blow there for the Wings. Kane's a really big piece of that team. Jonah Gadrich will miss the next week with an upper body injury for the Florida Panthers. Not great news there for the Florida Panthers. The Gadrich is a really solid 4th line forward. Patrick Laine had core muscle surgery and is out the next 3 to 4 months. Laine can't catch a break. This dude has been injury-riddled ever since he left Winnipeg, and even some points in Winnipeg. Like, this dude is so injury-riddled. I feel really bad for him. That injury is going to keep him out until, like, February or March. So, like, that's basically the entire season for Laine. So, that blow there is Laine's going to be out for a long period of time. And Calle Yarncroke is questionable for Tuesday's game action with a lower body injury. So, hopefully he's able to get into game action, but he may miss it. So, very interesting out there. Tyler Bertuzzi is out day-to-day with undisclosed injury and missed Sunday's game, so it's not great news there for the Blackhawks. Hopefully it's nothing too severe. Rupe Hintz left Saturday's game with an undisclosed injury and missed Sunday's game due to it. So once again, hopefully it's nothing too severe and he's able to get back in the very near future. Oscar Beck was activated off of injury reserve for the Stars as well and returned to game action on Sunday, so even though they did lose Hintz, who was a better player, they were at least able to get Beck back. On top of that, Marcus Foligno missed Sunday's game with upper body injury. Roman Jossi's out week to week with upper body injury and missed the weekend's games. And Robert Thomas left Saturday's game with upper body injury and didn't return and missed Monday's game due to it. So some bad blows there for the Blues, the Preds, and the Wild, as Foligno, Josi, and Thomas missed their most recent games. Hopefully they won't be out for an overlong period of time. They're just short-term injuries. Keandre Miller is out day-to-day with a lower body injury for the Carolina Hurricanes, so hopefully it's nothing too severe. While William Carrier, who has an LBI, and Eric Robinson, who has a UBI, won't be back anytime soon from the current injuries. So hopefully hopefully they're able to recover, but it seems like Carey and Robinson will be out at least a couple of weeks for the Carolina Hurricanes. Jacob Markstrom, who has missed 5 games, has returned to practice and could return at some point during the New Jersey Devils' upcoming road trip, while Cody Glass isn't traveling with New Jersey on their current road trip and is out week to week with undisclosed injury. And Brett Pesce, who left Sunday's game with undisclosed injury and didn't return, also won't travel with the New Jersey Devils. So Devils will go on their current road trip without a top for the defenseman and third line center. However, they could get Markstrom back in the very near future, which will be a big boost there for the New Jersey Devils. On top of that, Matt Rempe missed Sunday's game with a body injury after leaving, I think it was Thursday's game, due to an injury. So babble there for the Rangers as Rempe is still currently injured. Caleb Jones is going to miss 8 weeks for the Pittsburgh Penguins with a lower body injury, so he was a third pair defenseman. It's not the worst injury in the world, but still bad to see some added defensive depth out for the next 2 months at least. While Rakell has undergone a hand procedure and will be out the next 6 to 8 weeks. That is a bad blow for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's also been placed on injury reserve, so Rakell's a really big piece of that team. So to see him be out for any length of period of time, not great news there for the Penguins. On top of that, Pierre-Luc Dubois was active from injury reserve and returned after missing 5 games. Dylan Strome with Saturday's game with lower body injury and then returned, and coach Spencer Carberry did say that it was concerning injury. And then Rasmus Sandin was placed in injury reserve with an upper body injury, so not great news there. So Sandin's going to be out for a little bit of time, so Strome, but it's good to see Dubois was able to get back. And then in the Anaheim Ducks organization, Mikael Granlund left Saturday's game with a lower body injury, didn't return. Jansen Harkins was active of injury reserve, however he was a healthy scratch on Saturday. And Petrie, who did start the season on season opening injury reserve, was activated and sent back to the AHL, so very interesting note there. Andrei Kopitar was active off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Saturday. Jared McCann was placed in injury reserve with a lower body injury due to roster reasons. It was just enough so they could activate Brandon Montour. Jonathan Lekarmaki's out 2 to 3 weeks with a shoulder injury. Teddy Bluger's placed on injury reserve with an undisclosed injury and is out a few weeks. And Quinn Hughes missed Sunday's game with a lower body injury. So bad injury blows there. Lekarmak and Bluger are still going to be out for a couple of weeks, while Quinn Hughes did miss the most recent game for the Vancouver Canucks against the Edmonton Oilers. So very interesting injury updates from the past couple of days, but that is a long list of a lot of very interesting injury updates, and hopefully most of those guys are able to get back in the next week or two, so very interesting note there. Next, going over to some reassignments, some recalls, and some waiver updates. So when it comes to reassignments, the Buffalo Sabres reassigned Metsä, the Calgary Flames reassigned Hunt, the Carolina Hurricanes reassigned Legau, the Colorado Avalanche reassigned Attard, the Detroit Red Wings reassigned Branson Nygaard, the Devils reassigned Dawes, the Flyers have assigned Luchenko to the OHL, the Leafs have reassigned Hildeby, and the Canucks have reassigned LeBate, while Dune in Buffalo, Fensor in Carolina, Capobianco in Dallas, Casey in New Jersey, Shepard in Ottawa, Koivunen in Pittsburgh, Mancini, Kudraisev, and Willander in Vancouver, and Frank in Washington were all recalled. So very interesting note there. They swapped Metsä and Dune because they need more help in the forward group than they do in the defensive end right now. So Buffalo recalls Dune, but sends down Metsä. The Canes swap young defensemen, so now Fensor's at the NHL level, and Legau's back in the minors. Attard was sent down by Colorado because they're getting some bodies back. Hunt was sent down by Calgary because they're getting some bodies back. On top of that, Branson Nygaard, I'm guessing he wasn't playing too much games for the Red Wings, so they sent back down to the AHL. The Devils sent Dawes back down, potentially because Markstrom could be coming back in the very near future. Koivunen was recalled by the Pittsburgh Penguins due to probably the Rakell injury. And with all the Canucks injuries they're going through, they recall Mancini, Kudraisev, Willander. With the injury to Strome, the Caps recall Frank. So some very interesting recalls and reassignments from our past couple of days. Going over to the waiver updates, we saw 2 players who are currently on waivers. I don't know the results of those waiver replacements at this point in time, but Mitchell Chaffee in Tampa and newly signed Brett Leason in Washington are both placed on waivers. Now Leason was a pending UFA, he could have signed anywhere. I highly doubt he gets claimed, but Chaffee has been a really solid 4th line bomb 6 forward in the Tampa Bay Lightning organization over the past year or two. He's really carved out a really solid role for himself. He's making under $1 million and he's on the cheaper and younger side of things. So with all that in mind, I wouldn't be shocked if Chaffee was claimed by a team who really needs some solid bomb 6 forward help, but I also wouldn't be too shocked if he wound up clearing for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So very interesting note there, but Chaffee in Tampa and Leason in Washington are on waivers, and we shall wait and see what the outcome winds up being for those 2 guys, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly here, going over to 3 very interesting updates here when it comes to some other news. So first, when it comes to Brandon Montour, he's returned from his personal leave of absence. He shared that he was on his leave of absence because his brother recently passed away, so condolences to Brandon Montour. The team did get the win win for him on Saturday, so it's very good to see. But now we know why Brandon Montour was on his leave of absence, so very interesting note there. The Washington Capitals have relieved assistant coach Mitch Love of his duties, so very interesting note there. Apparently, the NHL found something when they were investigating a report of a domestic abuse claim, so apparently the Caps have officially relieved Mitch Love of his duties, so very interesting note there, as Mitch Love is now no longer with the Washington Capitals. I don't know too much about that story, but that's all the gist I basically got from what I was reading. And lastly, Pontus Johansson, who's playing I think over in the SHL, one of the top European prospects, is drawing a lot of interest from the NHL. So once again, it's not something that's going to happen in the very near future, but we've seen a couple of top European prospects come over from overseas, such as guys like right now Tomashik and Shabanov. In the past, we've seen guys like Zub and Mikheyev do that. So very interesting out there. We shall see what happens, but very interesting out there that there are apparently a couple of teams out there who have some major interest in bringing in top SHL player Pontus Johansson in. So very interesting out there. But those are all the updates when it comes to some of the other pieces of news. Lastly, here going over to a couple of trade rumors. So we got a couple of trade rumors to talk about. We're going to start off with the Colorado Avalanche. David Pagnotta was recently talking about the Avalanche, and he thinks that in a couple of months, maybe closer to your deadline, the Avalanche will go looking for a defensive upgrade. He says that this team could definitely use one. They do still have a pretty solid top four in Manson and Girard, Taze and Makar, which is a pretty dang good solid top four, but he says if they could add one more guy, bump Girard back down to the third pair, playing with a guy like Brent Burns, that would obviously be ideal for the Colorado Avalanche. So he wonders if the Avalanche maybe try and take a run at Rasmus Andersson. He says that the Avs would have some assets that the Flames would definitely want to try and pull off some sort of a deal. So that could be something that works. Like the Avalanche have had a blistering start to the regular season, starting 5-1-4. So they've had a really good start. They're probably going to be a playoff team again this year. Now, David Pagnotta does say that he wonders if Andersson maybe signs an extension in Colorado. So far, we've heard that he only wants to sign an extension with a select few teams, mainly Vegas and Dallas, and he nixed a trade to Los Angeles because he didn't want to sign an extension with the Los Angeles Kings. So would he want to sign Colorado? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, would the Avalanche even want to sign Andersson? Like at this point, Andersson's probably going to be an $8 to $9 million defenseman, and they have to pay Makar after next season. I know the cap is going up, but would they really have the ability to sign Andersson to have guys like Andersson, Taze, and Makar all make $7+ million? I'm not exactly sure. So we shall wait and see what happens there. But I could see the Avalanche try and add one more top for the defenseman. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a rental. I just don't think Andersson will be signing with the Colorado Avalanche. I'm not sure if the Avalanche would really have the appetite to sign him to a long-term extension when they need to sign Makar in the very near future. So we shall wait and see on that. But I could see Andersson be a really solid fit in the top four of the Colorado Avalanche, playing with a guy like maybe Josh Manson right behind Dave Makar. That'll be a really solid defensive upgrade, and will make the Avalanche have one of the best defenses in the entire NHL. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but David Pagnotta does say that the Colorado Avalanche could eventually go defenseman hunting, and that he could see Rasmus Andersson be a target of theirs, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Next, going over to the New Jersey Devils. David Pagnotta was mentioning the New Jersey Devils recently, and he says that the Devils are probably not going to go after a superstar level player. He says they already have a couple of really star level players in their system with guys like Bratt, Hughes, Meyer, Heischer, and a couple of other guys. We've heard a lot of people, including myself, say they needed a top 6 upgrade, really to sort of round out that team. But according to Pagnotta, he says that he doesn't expect them to make some sort of a star level trade, like trade for Robertson or Tuck or some of those other bigger names that we've been hearing, Owen Tippett. He says that they probably could try and go after some more of a role player, someone who can play second, third line minutes, that a lot of Stanley Cup winning teams have those sort of role players on their teams. And he says that the guy who they could potentially try and look at is bringing back Blake Coleman. Coleman was originally a New Jersey Devils player. After reaching the final year of his deal a couple of years back, he was traded to Tampa, where he wound up winning back-to-back cups, signing free agency with the Flames, and hasn't really done much with the Flames because the Flames have been a rather bad team. But he's got 2 years left on his deal, a $4.9 million cap, but the Devils have a tiny bit of cap space, not a whole bunch, so they probably have to make some sort of a corresponding move if they were to bring in Coleman. But like, he could be a really solid addition. I think he's got this year plus either 2 more seasons and this year or next year left on his deal, so he couldn't just help them for this year. He could help them for a couple of runs of the playoffs. So we should wait and see on that, but I think that could be a really solid addition. Like, put Coleman on your third line, if there's a left winger or a center. Like, that would make that team scary lethal. Like, you could really roll 3 lines and be a really solid team. So we should wait and see on that. No guarantees that they do go after Coleman, but David Pagnotta does link Coleman to the New Jersey Devils as a possible trade option, and does say they're more likely to go for a role player rather than go after a star-studded player. So we should wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to the Vancouver Canucks. I know we talked about this in our last week, but there's been more info that's come out recently saying that Pavel Zacha to the Vancouver Canucks is a possibility. According to Elliotte Friedman on his recent 32 Thoughts podcast, and also on Saturday Night Headlines, he was talking about the Vancouver Canucks and Pavel Zacha. On Saturday Night Headlines, he mentioned that the Canucks and Bruins did have discussions earlier this week about a potential Zacha trade to the Vancouver Canucks. On 32 Thoughts, he elaborated on this, saying that these trade talks have been going on since the offseason, and that the Bruins know that Zacha's got 2 years left on his term, know that there's a whole bunch of teams out there who are looking for guys who can play second line center, which is something Zacha can do. And basically Don Sweeney said he's not going to do this unless he gets the ask he wants, because he doesn't have to move him by the trade deadline. Hold on to him, trade him in the offseason, trade him at next year's trade deadline. They don't have to move him right now. So obviously Don Sweeney has set a big ask on Pavel Zacha, and so I think the reason why that trade hasn't happened yet. And if the Canucks are talking to them about Zacha, my guess would be teams like the Habs and the Canes would be as well. The teams who need second line center help. So once again, we shall see what happens. We know that Elliotte Friedman did mention recently that the Canucks didn't want to move the 2026 first round pick for some sort of an upgrade. However, he also did say that he doesn't think that the Canucks are on Zacha's no trade list. So in theory, it could happen, but it's just a really high asking price. So we shall wait and see if the Canucks and Bruins do wind up hooking up on a deal. My guess would be the Bruins want like a first round pick and a top prospect. I'm not sure if the Canucks really want to do that. So we shall wait and see on that. But apparently there has been trade talks regarding the Canucks and Pavel Zacha, and we shall see if there's a possibility of that coming to fruition in the next couple of weeks. So we shall wait and see on that. But that's all I'm going to talk for today. Let's check your guys' thoughts. Is the Canucks getting Zacha a likely possibility? Do you think that the Devils going after Blake Coleman will be a very smart option? And do you think that the Avalanche could eventually trade for Rasmus Andersson? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus all the news updates, the injury updates, and the signings from our past couple of days. That's all I'm going to talk for today. I'm going to tell you this video. If you're related, subscribe below. Thank you all for your support. I would never do this without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. Also a blog about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.